Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Meetinghouse of Provincetown, where we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and where we support each other on our spiritual search for truth and meaning. Welcome to those of you in the room, and welcome also to those of you joining us via our live stream. My name is Reverend Kate Wilkinson, and I am so glad to be with you this morning. I started having P-Town Pride a few years ago. I was actually kind of dismissive of it, to be honest, because every weekend feels like Pride weekend here. But then I was reminded that A, not everyone gets to live here and be themselves every day, and B, we cannot afford to take our rights for granted because backsliding does happen. And so we need to remember that LGBTQ rights and expression are something precious and something to be claimed and celebrated. So with that in mind, at the conclusion of today's service, at the very end, we are going to do something that I have admired at Pride parades across the country for many years, and which we tried out here last year. It was a lot of fun. A glitter blessing. So if you are in the mood to be blessed as your full self and to show your pride as a member of the LGBTQ community or one of our allies, I will be offering during the receiving line outside the sanctuary the chance to receive a smudge of glitter, either on your forehead or on your hand, as a symbol of that pride. But before we get to that bedazzling moment, and before we continue with our worship service today, I do have just a few announcements to share. A special thank you to Stuart Calhoun, who is our guest pianist today. Thank you so much for sharing your talents with us this morning, Stuart. Now, our accompanist, Brenda Silva, is home caring for her dad, and he has been placed on hospice. So can we just take a moment now to say a prayer for Brenda, for her dad, Joe, for her mother, Gladys, and her daughters and grandkids who are gathered at the house this morning. May her family be surrounded by our love during this difficult time. Thank you. And as joy and woe are woven fine, I also see Jimmy Rand in the room today, and I hear it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Jimmy Rand. Now, next Sunday is one of my very favorite Sundays of the church year, our flower communion service. The ritual of flower communion was started 101 years ago in Czechoslovakia by a Unitarian minister named Norbert Čapek. So next week, please bring a flower, a single flower, or bring extra, because some people don't know about it, to add to our communal bouquet, which will represent the beauty of gathering together in all of our diversity. And another of my favorite Meetinghouse traditions is going to be coming up shortly after that. Pancake Breakfast Day will be Sunday, June 23rd, hosted by the membership committee. Please let us know if you can help with that, or if you can bring something that would taste yummy alongside the pancakes. Thank you so much to Stan and Ada for organizing this again this year. Yeah, pancakes are worth applause. Also happening in June, on Wednesday, June 19th, we will be hosting the town-wide Juneteenth celebration on our lawn from 2 to 5 o'clock. There will be speakers, a picnic, and performances, including some drag performances. And it's going to be an amazing time, so please come to this fabulous event celebrating Black joy and commemorating the final enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation and the end of slavery in Texas 2 years after it had originally been proclaimed. Now, it takes a lot of people to make this event run smoothly, so please let me know if you are available to volunteer that day. We need help with setup, the welcome table, selling t-shirts, the volunteer safety team, and with cleanup. Finally, if you are here in person today, we hope that you can stay after the service for coffee and conversation downstairs in Acker Bosworth Hall. Let's take a moment now to affirm our Meetinghouse covenant. You can find this printed on the purple laminated cards in your pews. Now, we had a really big wedding in here yesterday afternoon, so everything got kind of tucked away. You might need to search for these. You might find them hidden under the hymnals. That's probably your best bet. But it's okay if you can't find them, because I'm going to say our covenant line by line, and you can just repeat each line after me. Love is the spirit of this meeting house.
Love is the spirit of this meeting house.
This is our great covenant.
This is our great covenant.
To dwell together in peace.
To dwell together in peace.
To seek the truth in love.
To seek the truth in love.
And to help one another. And now, as we light our chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you who are watching from home to light a candle wherever you are. In this way, we can feel connected even while we are apart. And I invite Vicki and Paula to light our chalice for us this morning.
Our chalice lighting this morning is from Linda Lee Franson. We light this flame for those who celebrate themselves, who fear, who hope, who persevere, who answer the call of love for all.
And today is such a joyful day to be reunited with all of you. So in that spirit, won't you please join me now in singing our opening hymn, which is number 361 in the gray hymnals, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Please rise as you are able. That's number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
You may be seated. Please join me now in a time of meditation and prayer. During this time or at any time during the service, you are welcome to light a silent candle at the table to the right of the pulpit, where there is a journal to record your thoughts and prayers. After the prayer, we will sing together Spirit of Life, which is hymn number 123. You can also find the words to this song printed on those same purple laminated cards in your pews. We'll sing it first in English and then in Spanish. In honor of Pride Weekend and Pride Month, our prayer this morning is called Prayer for the Queer Kids by Laurel Littlejohn Gray. And my friend and colleague, Reverend Aaron Splain, read this prayer at the Feminist Stoop reading Friday night at Women Crafts, and I really liked it, so I wanted to share it with you this morning. Prayer for the queer kids. When I Google prayer for queer kids, the first hit is all sin, asking God to force repentance for what I call holiness. And so I yell, I swear, and I rage, and I feel the heat of fury mixed with protection. Absolutely not. That thing they despise, I call it sacred. This being oneself in a world that suggests repentance with a tone of holier-than-thou damnation? No, not here, not in this house. There will be no repenting for the courage to love honestly, for the ways your gender beckons you to bloom. No. This is a prayer for the queer kids, a ring of fire protecting the Eden that exists inside of embodied love. In this house, we speak only of the holiness in existing honestly, in living and loving fully. My prayer for queer kids is this: may you find the people who love you fiercely. May the God of grace fill your lungs with life when people leave you gasping through tears. May you know in your bones that you can never be separated from all that is sacred, because it exists inside of you. It exists in every gesture of love you dare to offer the world. A salve to the soul bruise of anyone who believes that they are only somewhat worthy. An act of holy defiance. You, my dear, are glorious, just as you are, now and forever. Amen.
Our reading this morning is by Kat Liu, a member of the First Unitarian Universalist Society of San Francisco, who is also a practitioner in the Plum Village Buddhist tradition. Once, while in 6th grade, I brought home a quiz in which I'd gotten the highest score in the class, a 98%. When I proudly handed the paper to my mother, she asked, "Where's the other 2%? Mom believed that by training her children to aim for perfection, we would be more successful. Academically, her strategy worked. Unfortunately, it also resulted in neurotic offspring who tend to dwell on our failings. Over the year, Kat remembers, I've learned that many people share these nagging feelings of constantly falling short. Most of us have also learned to censor our internalized critic in front of others. One day, however, after Kat had gotten herself into a serious jam that required a friend to help me out, my inner critic could no longer be contained. I let loose an unrelenting stream of self-reprobation, ignoring Shelley's repeated attempts to assure me things would be okay. Finally, she yelled, "Stop beating up my friend!" Taken aback, I stopped. Then the words sank in and I laughed. Her uncharacteristic outburst and choice of words allowed me to see what I otherwise could not. I saw myself not as myself, but as Shelley's friend, someone loved by someone else, and realized that I was being harsher on myself than I would ever be on a friend. If a friend were in my situation, I would have genuinely seen their failings as a human and focused instead on how to make things better. So why hold someone to an unforgiving standard just because that someone is me? It sounds corny, but in that moment I finally understood the popular adage that you have to love yourself, so that even when friends aren't there to defend you, you can be your own advocate, friend, and fan. I will always have that voice telling me, you could have done better. That's okay, and maybe even beneficial, so long as it's not the only voice we hear. Occasionally, when the first voice gets to be too much, I say, "Stop beating up my friend," and it works.
Thank you, Vicki. Now is the time when we take a collection for the ongoing support of this Meetinghouse and our shared ministry. As we enjoy a musical reflection by our choir, we welcome your donations here in the sanctuary or online through PayPal or Venmo. You can find that information on our website, uumh.org. This time I invite Augie and 2 other volunteer ushers forward to take up our collection. On and off-site, your offerings will now be gratefully received. You return again because there's something about coming back to this place that is deepening. The messages you hear here might stretch your heart or your understandings or your comfort, but the container of this place, this building and the history and the music and the community hold you. So you are growing and changing while also being held, which makes it almost bearable to keep your heart open to the world. And that is what we are striving to do, to keep our hearts open a crack to the world, finding the things that allow us to do that. And I am really glad that you've returned here. During the month of May, I found myself returning to some people and places in my life that got me thinking a bit more about that concept of revisiting and returning to things as a really great spiritual practice and spiritual teacher. And then there's that wonderful song that the choir sang, "Return again, return to the home of your soul. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are born and reborn again." So, of course, the place that I return to most frequently this past month has been my plot at the community garden, the true home of my soul. How is your kale doing, by the way? For those of you who don't know, before I left on sabbatical, I gave out kale starts that I had planted from seed. Some places flourish most with our time and attention and frequent visits. And gardens are like that. They like us to come by often. But some places and people will be there much unchanged while years go by in between. Early in May, Lisa and I went to Washington, D.C. for a few days, and we met up with my friend from middle school. With friends like that, right? You can just be your full self, your real self, and you feel at home. And you know what? If you have been straying a bit from who that real self is, or forgetting yourself apart from your role or your job or routines, some time with an old friend can remedy that by reminding you of that old self. Even that middle school self, that awkward self when you were just figuring out who you were in the world. Sometimes the home of your soul is an old friend. And Lottie was a great tour guide. She showed us around the sights of DC. We went to the National Portrait Gallery and saw the amazing portraits of the Obamas. Highly recommend that. And we went to the African American Museum and stayed many hours there. And we went to the Capitol building, and it wasn't until she took a picture of Lisa and me standing in front of the steps of the Capitol building that I actually remembered that we had been there before. I said, I feel like I already have this picture. And so I took a quick scroll through my phone, and it revealed that, yes, I had the exact same picture taken by Lottie 11 years earlier. And wow, a lot has changed in those 11 years. For one thing, in that picture, we look like babies. But also, a lot has changed in our country in 11 years, right? I mean, that Capitol building has seen a lot, that's for sure. But it looked the same in the photo, even though we looked so different. The building behind us looked the same. Sometimes we just have to have faith that some of the containers in our life are constant and strong and flexible enough to hold the changes of our lives. The containers of friendship, the containers of democracy and our institutions, the containers of our bodies, even though they're changing, the containers of our faith communities. Even as we change, we are held by these things. And sometimes returning reminds us of this. Another place that I returned to during my sabbatical was a place called the Cedar Hill Retreat Center in Duxbury. It's a lovely old farmhouse atop a grassy hill with a view of the ocean. And if you walk down that grassy hill to the beach and look out across Plymouth Bay, you can actually see my dad's oyster grant from there. So I always wave, just in case he's out there. And Cedar Hill is a Unitarian Universalist retreat center. And I love this place because of the role that it played in my teenage years. Now, I grew up going to First Parish UU in Plymouth. That's where I met Keith and David. And my youth group used to go to Cedar Hill for sleepovers. And the upstairs has 3 large bedrooms full of bunk beds. And we would stay up all night laughing and talking, our poor chaperones. And we'd play big games on the big lawn. And then I went back to Cedar Hill in my 20s, and I led some young adult retreats there when I was living up in Boston. And a group of us would drive down from the Arlington Street Church. And now, from time to time, I go back as an adult for things like the minister's retreat that I attended there last month. Now, we didn't sleep over, but we spent the day there together worshiping, listening to our guest speaker, taking walks on the beach, and connecting with the regional UUA staff who had joined us there. And we ate and we sat on the big front porch in the rocking chairs that I love. It's so comforting returning to a place after a time away. Just reflecting on what is the same in your life and what has changed since the last time you were there. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are born and reborn again. For me, Unitarian Universalism has been a constant, a container strong and flexible enough to hold my changes from the time I was a little girl and it began helping to shape my ideas about the world until now when I get to share its messages with all of you. And it has brought these special places and people and opportunities into my life that I am so grateful for. And that day at the Cedar Hill retreat, my colleagues who were in charge of worship offered us a ritual that I was just so grateful for. And I found it so powerful that I really, really want to share it with you today. And honestly, it kind of meanders from today's theme in a way, but in another way it's spot on. Because we're talking today about returning again to familiar places, but I have to admit that not all the familiar places that we return to are good ones, right? And particularly not all of the familiar places in our mind that we return to again and again are good ones, right? I don't know if this is going to surprise you, but what a room full of UU ministers chose as the theme for worship that day was what to do with the feeling of not being good enough. Is that a place that any of you revisit occasionally? Daily, maybe? That's a tempting place to go back to, the place of not feeling good enough. My colleague who was leading worship told a story about a day that she had had recently where she was working from home, trying to multitask, getting dinner ready, taking care of her daughter, but also needing to make a phone call to a parishioner. And so she did, but she was a little distracted and maybe didn't say the exact most perfect, most eloquent words of comfort and compassion that she could have said. I mean, she didn't say anything incredibly wrong or rude, but she just felt that she didn't do an amazing job. So when she hung up the phone, she just couldn't let go of that conversation. Did that happen to you? She just played it over in her mind. And instead of cutting herself some slack, she just went for the jugular. You're a terrible minister. You're a fraud. You probably shouldn't even be doing this, and everyone else who's doing it is better than you are. And here's my personal favorite. If they really knew you, they wouldn't even want you to call them. So maybe you need to do a little translating to your own setting. But I wonder if you have had these moments when the mean voices in your heads have told you things like, you're a terrible friend, parent, spouse, or you're not smart enough, thin enough, rich enough, blank enough. And you know, this ties into the theme of Pride Week too, right? Because sometimes when we forget to celebrate our pride, or when we listen to the mean voices in the world that say we are sinful instead of holy, we sometimes believe them and we start to feel bad about ourselves. And those mean voices are loud, right? Well, here's what my colleague at Cedar Hill had us do. She handed out pieces of paper and markers, and she asked us to write down all the things that those mean voices say, all the ugly things we tell ourselves when we return to that place that maybe we first visited as a child of feeling not good enough. And we did. We all scribbled on our little pieces of paper, and let me tell you, the ink just flowed. It was kind of a cathartic experience, exercising those voices, getting them out onto the paper. And so that is what I'm going to invite you to do today. So would my helpers that already know about this, please help me now by passing out some paper and markers to everybody here. And the invitation is to go ahead and write down what your mean voices say to you when you are feeling not good enough. What are those messages you hear when you accidentally revisit that unwanted place in your head? Now, please use the paper and markers provided. And those of you watching from home, you can find a paper and pen nearby and write your own list. And we're going to take a few minutes here for this little exercise. Okay, has everyone had a chance to make their little list, their long list? Okay, I probably shouldn't admit to this, but here's what happened at the retreat. After I had written down my list of mean things that my internal committee sometimes assures me of, I filled my paper pretty quickly, actually, and I reread my list, and I was like, yep, true. And I glanced very briefly at the paper of the woman sitting next to me, someone I like and admire and respect a lot. And I kid you not, her paper was identical to mine. She had written all of the same things. And when I saw it on her paper, I did not think it was true. I wanted to say, hey, stop beating up my friend. And I wanted to scream at her, stop thinking that. Stop going there. Don't go to that place. That's not a place of truth. And just when I was going to start shouting into the quiet worship circle, we were invited to bring our papers forward to the altar. And that is actually the part that I am so excited to share with you today. And in a moment, Stuart's going to play some music for us, and I'm going to invite you actually to bring your lists forward to our altar table, because you know what? You don't need to hang on to those. Those are not lists that you need to revisit all the time. That place of not enoughness is not a place that we need to return to over and over again. And so I'm going to come down here to my magic cauldron, and I'm going to invite you to release those messages into the water. Let's let go of those words. Let's let go of that place of feeling not good enough. And let's start with the folks in this aisle and then move to here and here and here. And a little magic's going to happen up here, but folks at home, you are going to have to create magic of your own. So maybe you can tear up your paper or bury it or throw it in the ocean later, okay? But here in the sanctuary, we're going to release our lists into this water. Let's begin. How did it feel to watch those messages disappear? I just had to share that experience with you. Thank you for being part of the container that holds this community as we go through the changes of our lives, as we grow and stretch and make our way back to each other and to our best selves and to our pride instead of our shame. And mostly, thank you for returning again and again to this place, these people, this home of our souls. Amen, and blessed be. Please join me now in singing our closing hymn, number 1007. This one's in our teal-colored hymnals. That's 1007. There's a river flowing in my soul. Please rise as you are able for 1007. There's a river flowing in my soul.
There's a river.
Let's just start over.
There's a river in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. First verse again. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul.
You may be seated.
It has become our practice to pose a question based on the theme of the service each week. It can be a topic of sharing at coffee hour today or with friends during the week. If you'd like to delve deeper into this topic, we invite you to our midweek Zoom coffee hour on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Let us know if you need that link. And our question this week is, what are you feeling called to return to? A place? A friendship? A life lesson? What are you feeling called to return to? A place? A friendship? A life lesson?
A reminder that in the receiving line, I will be offering glitter blessings. If you want one, just point to your forehead or your hand where you would like to be blessed. And at coffee hour, look around at all the beautiful, shining, fabulous faces that surround you, at the amazing thing that is our blessed bodies gathering together. Every body in this sanctuary and beyond is a holy thing, every person a sacred being. Today I offer you this blessing. May you receive and reflect love everywhere you go, and know in your deepest heart and every day you matter and belong. May you hold on to hope and your inner sparkle, even when discouragement and despair beckon. May the beauty that is you shine out bright as the stars from which we came and to which we shall return. Together, may we make this a place of welcome and healing and connection. Together, may we practice compassion and courage, seeing and celebrating and supporting each other. Together, may we be the sparkling force of love that our world needs. Go in peace.